He was the founder of the largest contiguous empire in history. He was the ruler of the Mongols, the nomadic warriors who conquered most of Asia and parts of Europe. He was the scourge of the Islamic world, the destroyer of cities and civilizations. He was Genghis Khan and he was unstoppable, but there was one land that he never invaded, one land that he never conquered, one land that he never saw. That land was India, the ancient and rich subcontinent that lay beyond the Indus River. Why did Genghis Khan never invade India? What stopped him from adding India to his vast domain? This is the story of how and why Genghis Khan spared India from his wrath. Genghis Khan was born in 1162 in the steppes of Mongolia as Temujin, the son of a tribal chief. He grew up in a harsh and violent environment where survival depended on strength and cunning. He witnessed the death of his father, the betrayal of his allies, and the abduction of his wife. He fought against his enemies and united the Mongol tribes under his leadership. He adopted the title of Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler, and embarked on a series of campaigns that expanded his territory and power. He invaded China, Persia, Central Asia, and Russia, and established the Mongol Empire, which stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. He created a formidable army that was disciplined, mobile, and ruthless. He devised a sophisticated system of administration that was tolerant, efficient, and meritocratic. He was a visionary leader who transformed the Mongols from a backward and fragmented people into a civilized and dominant force. India was a land of contrasts and diversity where ancient traditions and modern innovations coexisted. It was a land of mountains and plains, rivers and seas, forests and deserts. It was a land of languages and religions, arts and sciences, castes and classes. It was a land of kingdoms and empires, wars and alliances, invasions and migrations. It was a land of wealth and poverty, splendor and misery, wisdom and ignorance. It was a land that had fascinated and attracted many conquerors, from Alexander the Great to Mahmud of Ghazni. It was a land that had resisted and assimilated many invaders, from the Greeks to the Turks. It was a land that had a long and complex history that shaped its identity and destiny. The Mongols and the Indians had a history of interactions that ranged from peaceful to hostile. The Mongols had traded with India through the Silk Road and had learned about its culture and geography. The Mongols had raided India through the mountain passes and had looted and plundered its towns and villages. The Mongols had allied with India against their common enemies, such as the Khwarezmians and the Delhi Sultanate. The Mongols had also fought with India over the control of the Indus Valley and the Punjab region. The Mongols had influenced India by introducing new technologies, such as gunpowder and cannons, and new diseases, such as the bubonic plague. The Mongols had also been influenced by India by adopting some of its religions, such as Buddhism and Islam, and some of its customs, such as vegetarianism and chess. The Mongols and the Indians had a history of encounters that prepared them for a possible confrontation. The Mongols had seen India as a potential target, a rich and fertile land that could be added to their empire. The Indians had seen the Mongols as a looming threat, a savage and barbaric horde that could destroy their civilization. The Mongols and the Indians had a history of expectations that awaited a decisive clash. But that clash never happened, at least not during the lifetime of Genghis Khan. What were the reasons for Genghis Khan's non-invasion of India? What were the factors that prevented him from crossing the Indus River and launching a full-scale attack on India? The answer is not simple, but involves a combination of political, military, and personal factors that influenced his decision. One of the political factors was the priority of other campaigns that demanded his attention and resources. Genghis Khan had to deal with the resistance and rebellion of his enemies, such as the Jin dynasty in China, the Khwarezmian Empire in Persia, and the Russian principalities in Europe. He had to secure and consolidate his gains and establish his authority and legitimacy. He had to plan and prepare for his succession and ensure the stability and unity of his empire. He had to balance and manage the interests and ambitions of his generals and sons, who commanded different regions and armies. He had to consider and respect the wishes and opinions of his advisors and allies, who counseled and supported him. He had to weigh and evaluate the costs and benefits of each campaign and choose the most profitable and feasible one. One of the military factors was the difficulty of the terrain and the climate that posed a challenge and a risk for his army. Genghis Khan had to cross the Hindu Kush mountains, which were high and rugged, and the Indus River, which was wide and deep. He had to face the heat and the monsoon, which were unfamiliar and uncomfortable. He had to adapt and adjust his tactics and strategies, which were suited for the steppes and the plains, not for the hills and the forests. He had to contend and compete with the elephants and the cavalry, which were the main weapons of the Indian armies. He had to overcome and defeat the fortifications and the resistance, which were the main defenses of the Indian kingdoms. He had to supply and sustain his army, which was large and hungry, and required a lot of food and water. One of the personal factors was the lack of interest and motivation that affected his vision and ambition. Genghis Khan had no personal or historical connection with India, unlike China or Persia, which had been his rivals and enemies for centuries. He had no religious or ideological reason to invade India, unlike Islam or Christianity, which had been his targets and threats for decades. He had no cultural or intellectual curiosity about India, unlike Buddhism or science, which had been his sources and inspirations for years. He had no emotional or psychological attraction to India, unlike his homeland or his family, which had been his roots and his passions for life. He had no political or military necessity to invade India, unlike his empire or his legacy, which had been his goals and his achievements for generations. Genghis Khan never invaded India because he had other priorities, other challenges, and other interests. He never invaded India because he had enough enemies, enough problems, and enough lands. He never invaded India because he had no desire, no reason, and no need. He never invaded India because he was Genghis Khan and he was unstoppable.